So the last couple features here have to do with grade calculation. So when you set up a test or an assignment, there is an option called selective release. So let's say you're working in a test and you give 60 minutes for your test. But you have a student that has special needs, and they they need to get extra time on a test. What you can do is you create your test and you set it for 60 minutes, and then you make a copy of the test and you call it something slightly different, and you set the time limit on that. So on the first test, you would release that test to all the students in the class except for your, let's say, that one student, and then you would copy the test, name it something slightly different, and make the time available 75 minutes or 90 minutes, whatever, and then you would release that test to only that student. Okay. The problem with the way the grade was being calculated is whichever, we'll call it version 1, version 2 of the test, the students who had version 1 released to them, the gradebook would calculate a 0 for version 2 and vice versa. So that has been fixed, and so now when you go into the gradebook, in the grade columns, you will see in NA if that test or that assignment is not available to that student. And so anything with an NA is not factored into the grade. Okay? So if there's a dash, it means that the student has not completed the test and the due date has not passed. If there's a 0, it means they either got a 0 or the due date has passed and they didn't take the test. If there's a score, that's obviously what they got. And then the NA now lets you see that, okay, this Word Lesson 5 test was only released to this one student. It was not released to these other 2 students, and so it's not factored into their grade into their category average, and then ultimately their final grade. The other gradebook issue, and this wasn't really an issue that affected the student's grade ultimately, but caused students to panic, let's say, during the course. So in this case here, where I have all these different tests and assignments set up, let's say you had 10 things that were being graded during the course, and the student completed the first 3 things and they got 100 on all of them. Their final grade would be showing up as a 30 because the gradebook would count anything that hadn't been taken yet, even if it wasn't due yet, as a 0 until it was completed. So even though the student had 3 grades, 100 points, that's 100 average, it would calculate their grade as 300 points divided by 10 instead of divided by 3, and so their average would show up as a 30. It would improve as the course went on, but it was difficult, for the student to really see where they were at. So we changed the way that functions. So now the final grade is calculated on a rolling basis. So now the only grades that get factored into the category average and then the final grade are for tests and assignments that have been completed and graded, or tests or assignments where the due date has passed and the student did not complete the test or assignment. So that's why for these zeros here, that means that for these tests or this assignment, the due date is passed and the student just didn't do it. The ones with dashes mean either that the test was not released to that student, or that the due date has not yet passed for that test or assignment. And so those grades do not get calculated into the category average or the final grade until the due date hits or the test or assignment has been completed.